Welcome to Relationships as Spiritual Practice, Bridging the Secular and Spiritual. With your host, Alia Lowe Chardet, founder of Mindful Compassionate Dialogue and the Wise Heart Community.
Hello, thank you for being here today. Today, the topic is 4 ways to replace disempowering habits. So I'm going to go through the habits of protesting, blame, complaining, and comparing. And with each one, I'm going to talk about a way to replace that disempowering habit with an empowering, self-empowering practice. Let's start with protesting. I'm using this word protesting, I'm taking it from attachment theory. So I'm not talking about social movements here. Protesting in attachment theory refers to a set of behaviors that try and get the care to come towards us. With what most would call tragic strategies or negative behaviors. So protesting another's behavior might include trying to convince them that they're wrong, or criticizing them for what they're doing, shouting, yelling, collapsing, withdrawing affection, giving someone the silent treatment, going to your room and slamming the door. All these might be called protest behaviors. And, just want to acknowledge behind every protest behavior, behind all of these tragic, disempowering habits, of course, are precious needs that we're trying to meet. And so all of these protest behaviors we would call tragic strategies, because they don't empower you and they don't get your need met, basically. So my offer to you about replacing these protesting behaviors is to self-affirm your own no. So that might sound a little funny, but isn't protesting a form of saying no? So protesting is an unconscious, reactive form of saying no. And what I'm inviting you to do is to notice that no, because that's what's present with a protest, right? To notice, if I'm trying to convince someone, or if I'm telling them, criticizing their decisions, shouting, yelling, withdrawing, all those things I named, then what I'm actually doing is saying no to something I don't like, right? Does that make sense? So I want you to hear that no consciously. So bring that protest no into the conscious realm. Stop yourself and say, I'm saying no to something. There's something I don't like. And under what I don't like, there's something I want. You don't even have to know what that thing is in the very first few seconds, right? It's already a huge achievement that you become conscious that you're protesting, and then you consciously say, I'm trying to say no. Okay. Because there's something I want that I'm not getting. Okay. And then you might dip into the awareness of what you have control over and what you don't have control over in your life. And just gently reminding yourself, I don't have control over what this other person does or says. You wouldn't even want control over them. That would be a huge job. Very complicated and wouldn't meet many needs. Okay, so there's no way I could control what this person says or does. And there is something I want, right? So you have this internal dialogue. And then I would encourage you to notice what you want. That might take a moment, or it might take days. It might require a therapy session. It might require sitting down with all the needs cards or the needs lists, looking through them. Might require empathy from a friend to figure out what you were wanting in that moment. And perceiving that you couldn't get, right? Because a protest behavior wouldn't come unless it thought you couldn't get the need met without some big strategy, like yelling or whatever, right? And it may be true that you can't get your need met with that person. Okay. But the protest behavior is primitive, right? It's not teasing apart needs and strategies. It's not knowing that you could get your needs met with multiple people. It doesn't have to be one person. So you find out what was the thing that you wanted. And if you just come up with a strategy, well, I wanted them to go for a bike ride with me or whatever it was. And then you go to the need, right? Oh, but what need would that meet? So it's really important to use the needs list or the needs cards. So you can be clear, you're not mixing up needs and strategies. Once you know what you need, then you have a decision to make. Now I know what I need. So do I want to pursue getting that need met with that person with whom I was protesting their behavior? Or would it be wiser to pursue that, getting that need met with someone else? And I say that sentence like it's such an easy thing to do. And of course, we have all sorts of attachments that we want that single person to meet that single need, right? We hunker down in that. So if you feel a sense of demand energy or desperation, like, I want it met with that person, then that's a good sign that you need more empathy. You need more support with this because in the end, you want to be able to hold your precious need with a sense of openness about how you could nourish that need. So you have that decision point. I want to get this need met with that person. Maybe you decide, oh, yes, probably they'd be happy to meet my need if I would just make a request. So then you might enter into needs-based negotiation with that person. Otherwise, you're looking for a different way to take care of your need and maybe make a request of someone else. And you'll decide then, take action. What will I do instead of doing this protest to get my need met? You may find that if you really start noticing protest behavior, that you're often protesting the same thing again and again. And that might be in a single relationship, or it might be across multiple relationships in which you're protesting the same type of behavior in multiple people. That's a good sign that there's a tender need alive for you. With any type of reactivity, including protesting, there's a good chance that there's a tender need alive for you. If you don't know what a tender need is, you can look that up on my website. Basically, it's a need in which you don't have a confident relationship to, that it could be met. Okay, let's go to the next one. Blame. So blame, as I'm defining it here, is like a protest because it is resistance to what's happening, but it's less personal in a way. It's more like something happens and I don't like the thing that happened. And so when we're protesting things that happen, blame is what we go to often. And it's just sad because the thinking behind blame is that if I find out whose fault it is, then this experience that I find so averse or sad or painful, whatever it is, will be transformed, which is usually not true, right? Well, it's never true, actually, because the experience already happened that you don't like. So you're blaming someone is you saying, I refuse to acknowledge this present moment experience. I resist it. I tense up against it. So it's avoiding your own experience. It might also be a tragic strategy to avoid punishment, right? If you grew up in a house where when an adverse experience occurred, especially if it was averse for your caregivers and you got punished, then you learn to blame to kind of shift the attention, of course. And also blame might be a tragic strategy, as delusional as it is, to avoid future pain, right? So you imagine if you can find someone to blame, then that won't happen again. If you blame someone and they're incredibly resourced, they might hear you with giraffe ears and hear your unmet need and be able to see their own behavior and do something different. That would be nice. A little unlikely, I think. Okay, so the antidote for blame, the empowering alternative to blame is self-connection. But let's look at 3 specific points around self-connection. The first is to identify that anger is present. So if blame is present, anger is present. So identify, oh, I'm blaming, I'm angry. And how do you notice anger is present in you? Just take a moment now. What's the top sign for you in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your actions that tells you, oh, you're angry? And once you've identified anger then, and the top symptom of anger, go ahead and identify the vulnerable feeling underneath anger. Underneath anger is always some version of sadness, hurt, or fear. Some version of that. You may have a little different word than one of those 3. So you want to look around for that. Oh, I'm blaming this person. I feel angry because I feel sad. No, hurt. No, fear. Yes, what am I afraid of? Right? You're just doing that process with yourself. And then identifying the unmet need for you with that situation. What need did you perceive to be threatened, or what needs went unmet in what you're trying to blame someone for? And then, most empowering of all, decide what action you will take to nourish the need that was unmet or threatened in that situation. This is where you really take your power back, right? When you blame, you're giving your power away to someone else. Oh, this is your fault. Make it better for me. Instead of you making it better for yourself. How do you want to make it better for yourself in that moment of that situation you don't enjoy? What do you want to do? Sometimes this can be tricky when the other person has a lot of authority, right? Like a boss, supervisor, etc. So it might require some creative thinking. How do you want to take care of yourself in that situation? Maybe you'll need to talk with your empathy buddy or a mentor to brainstorm some ideas. Okay, let's look at the third one, complaining. So three things that I associate with complaining are a lack of agency. And with a lack of agency is usually hopelessness. Agency, as we define it here at Wise Heart, implies having both the internal and external resources to act on your choice. So when you don't have agency, you may know what you want to choose, but you're not finding a way to act on that choice. There's often some hopelessness associated or frustration there. Complaining is also a way of saying that you're unwilling to just even look at things as they are and take responsibility for your own discomfort in that moment. When you're complaining, the third thing is you're letting aversion take up space in you, right? You're just letting that aversion wash over you. And that's okay in the moment that you feel it, right? You're 100% your aversion. But when you don't find your grounding around that experience, when you don't come back to yourself, and that aversion keeps taking up space, it takes your resources and your skills along with it. And you start to complain about stuff. It's just like complaining is almost like these little eruptions of an aversion that you don't want to be with. You don't want to be grounded with and notice and expand around. Well, sometimes when I really notice the impulse to complain, I say, if someone's around me, right? I'm complaining to someone. I say, I just want a couple minutes to complain and then I'll come back to myself. So that's okay. Just like when you set your intention first and then you complain, it's a really different experience for everyone, including you, because you're letting it erupt into the space. You're seeing it for what it is. And then you're returning to your grounding. Like the energy got to move. And then you come back. So self-soothing and self-responsibility is what I propose as the antidote to complaining. So you're complaining, and then you just do what we just talked about. Oh, there's something I don't like. There's something I'm averse to. And then as you're getting grounded, because just naming it will already help you start to get grounded, you're asking yourself the question, can I tolerate this aversive experience? Like a sound, it might be a sound outside, a big sound, or in the room. It might be a bodily sensation. You have to go to the bathroom. Like it could even be something like that, right? So really check in, ask yourself, can I tolerate this? And often around tolerate, there's the next question is, can I relax around it? So often there's some breathing that you might do, inviting your body to relax around it. Expand and relax around that aversion. And as you do that, you're going to get some information, some feedback about whether you're able to relax around it or whether the aversive experience is taking up so much of your consciousness, or you spent so long not attending to it that now it's dysregulated you at a level that you can no longer relax around it. That happens, right? So then you're just with that. I actually can't relax around it. So I need to change something. Okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom or put a sweater on or whatever the thing is, right? However you're going to handle that aversion, or put earplugs in if it's an aversive sound. I carry earplugs everywhere I go because I'm very sensitive to certain kinds of sound, so that I can have that choice. Relax around it, expand, tolerate, or take care of myself in a new way. So again, disempowering behavior is complaining. The empowering medicine antidote is self-soothing and self-responsibility. Naming it, asking if you can tolerate it and relax around it, or checking if you want to change something in the environment or in yourself or in your life. Okay, let's look at the fourth one. I want to talk about comparisons, comparing. In NVC, nonviolent communication communities, they often say comparing jackals, right? This reactive habit of comparing yourself either to a standard that you're holding in your own mind that you may have inherited from family or society, right? Or comparing yourself to someone else. So let's just dive into that just a little bit, and then we'll go to the antidote. So first of all, when you're comparing, probably both are present, right? There's a person you're comparing yourself to and a standard. Sometimes you're just more conscious of the person. You're focusing on the person. But when you're comparing yourself to a person, that person is the embodiment of some standard, or sometimes a whole list of standards. So it can be big. So it can be really helpful to bring those standards into the light. Often they're unconscious. Just write them down, or have your study buddy or mentor, friend, help you identify what they might be. So just by talking it through. And just a tender note here. When you're comparing yourself to some internal standard and you find yourself not measuring up, that movement, you see how I'm doing? Well, if you're listening, you're not seeing. I'm doing this movement. I have my hand on my heart, and then I'm moving to the outside of my body. It's that movement of abandoning your authenticity when you compare yourself to some standard. You can feel a little sadness hearing that. I've done a lot of that in my own life, right? Achieving goals, trying to live up to what I imagine are people's expectations of me, right? That's a form that standards take. Trying to win acceptance by getting a certain amount of work done. All these things we do, right? Every time we do that, we abandon our true selves, what's true for us, what our deepest longings are, what we're meant to create and be and pursue in this life. Okay, that's the first piece on comparing and how it lives, or how it might live in you. The second piece is just to remember that whoever you're comparing yourself to is not a real human being, right? You're saying, I'm comparing myself to Mark. This Mark character that you're comparing yourself to does not exist, because that person is just a simplified version, an oversimplified version, an image, an idea, actually. Seems like a real person, but actually they're just an idea. Because however explicitly you might be able to name Mark's achievements, for example, if that's what you're comparing yourself to, whatever type of achievement they might be, you're not taking into account anything that Mark experienced when he achieved those things. You don't know what he lost. You don't know the cost to his heart or his body or his family or his community. You don't know anything about the subtleties of that path for him and how it exists, or whether he even enjoys those achievements that you're now grasping after, right? Through that comparing mind. So we just want to dispel the spell of the comparing mind as well. I'm hoping that helps a little to do that. Okay. Let's look at the antidote for the comparing mind. The antidote is standing in your own gifts and contributions. And I'm just making this motion with my hand from my crown down to my root. I'm standing upright, expanding out from my central channel. I'm literally standing in myself. Well, in this moment, I'm sitting, but I'm talking about this practice, right? Let's jump into it a little bit. So, one antidote for standing, for comparing, is to start with noticing what you want to celebrate in that person you're comparing yourself to. So this sounds kind of funny for standing in your gifts, but it's going to come around. So as you say to yourself, oh, instead of comparing myself to Mark, what if I celebrated Mark? What do I want to celebrate about Mark? That's going to take you down a whole different road. It might require some real focus, right? And some resource. So you might do that after, again, like a self-compassion meditation, or, do that when you're focused and grounded, or with a friend. They might want to celebrate with you, and that will help bring in the energy of that. And so as you find what you're celebrating about Mark and get really specific, you start to bring in that energy into your field. And you realize, oh, there's something precious there. There's something precious that I'm celebrating. Ah, it's because there's something I want to give and contribute, right? You find, as you celebrate, you'll find what's the precious thing in that celebration. And I'm guessing, I'm confident actually, that you'll be able to notice that in that celebration, there's actually something that you authentically want to give or contribute to the world. Naming that, you bring it into your own heart. Don't go too fast about the hows, whens, right? Just let yourself be in the quality of that, the preciousness of what you want to give, or this precious energy or form, way of being in the world. Another way you can access standing in your gifts and contributions is just simply to name 3 gifts and talents you enjoy in yourself, and 3 ways you contribute to the lives of others. So just as a simple practice, you hear yourself comparing, or you have comparing thoughts, and then with the speed of light, maybe you have it written down on a note card even until you can do it automatically. 3 gifts you value in yourself and 3 ways you contribute. Right? I'm just going to do one quickly for you as an example. 3 gifts that I value in myself are my physical endurance, my capacity to do art, and my capacity to see people's hearts and see how they're organizing themselves around their hearts. 3 ways I contribute: this podcast, teaching classes, and telling people I love them. Okay. The third and final practice I offered to you regarding standing in your gifts and contributions as an antidote to comparison is a little bit similar to the first, is to every time you make a comparison, ask yourself, what am I longing for? What dream do I have for myself that I might be denying? I think I've said in another podcast that if I get a symptom of depression, I almost always find that I had been unconsciously denying a desire or a dream, longing, particular need in myself. So making comparisons could be a symptom that you've denied something in yourself. So go looking. The context and the content of that comparison should give you a cue about what it might be, a clue. Okay. Let me do a summary and then we'll close. So 4 ways that we disempower ourselves: protesting another's behavior, blame, complaining, and comparing. And 4 antidotes to each of those are affirming your own no and finding the need you want to take care of behind your no, connecting with the precious feelings and needs when you're blaming and deciding how you'll take care of those needs. When you're complaining, doing self-soothing and then taking responsibility by noticing the aversion, soothing, regulating, asking if you'd like to do something different in the moment. And then the last one, antidote to comparing, is standing in your own gifts and contributions. Thank you so much for being with me here today. Thank you deeply, deeply for your practice. Radiating love from my heart to yours.
You can learn more about mindful, compassionate dialogue and find free resources, live offerings, and self-paced workshops online at www.wiseheartcommunity.org.